Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm fairly sure that this isn't exactly the video that you guys wanted to see initially. I'm sad to report that sadly the tools that I'm waiting for are still stuck at customs, and until they get out of there and actually get delivered, the video is going to be temporarily delayed. But in the meantime, I did reach out to a buddy of mine and asked to borrow his mini PC so that I can have a little bit of a review and go over the geography, use case scenarios, kind of what you guys could use for it, and whether or not it could be viable for a nice home lab environment, whether it's going to be as a virtual machine host or overall as a Kubernetes cluster or a standalone node. On the table, we have a KingNovy or whatever the equivalent are in the mini PC form factor. And this one in particular, I'm going to pull up the specs right after this as well. But this one in particular is a 12th gen i5 that supports DDR5 and has the i226V networking chipset, which supports 2.5 gigabit per second transfer speeds. I have already taken it apart because initially I wanted to talk about the geography and how you guys can sort of muck around with it and whether or not it's going to be a good fit for your use case scenario. So before we begin with the motherboard, I'm just gonna take this off right now. Before we begin with the motherboard, I'm gonna be talking about the case, which is a solid aluminum piece and actually a pretty good use case for cooling the little CPU, which is actually kind of a beast. Um, and it does an overall pretty good job. However, it does get fairly toasty, but it does an overall good job for what it is. Nice and quiet, silent PC, no active cooling. It really does a fairly decent job. On the bottom panel, you do have the position for a 2.5-inch drive, which is just attached upside down, and then with an add-on SATA and power cable, it connects to the motherboard. And finally, la pièce de résistance, which is the what I believe to be the genius behind the whole machine, is the little motherboard. So let's go over the specifications. You have 6 ports of Ethernet. It's 2.5 because it's the Intel 226V chipset, and it allows slightly higher data transfer rates than what you'd normally be used to. On the topic of geography and connectivity and IO ports, in the back you have this is a COM port. So if we were to match it with the panels, this is your COM port. You have USB. Actually, hold on. Let's there we go. That's how it is. So you have 4 USB 2.0 by the looks of a console port, display port, and HDMI, with the possible addition of Wi-Fi antennas for the supported models. And just looking at a little bit closer to the board, probably the most disappointing aspect is that it has a single stick of DDR5, therefore running in single channel. Some of the goods, obviously you have the 6 networking ports, which are controlled by the chips right here, and a slot over here for a wireless adapter, which also can be added after the fact that you have bought it. In terms of connectivity, you have a USB 2 header, a SATA port, a SATA power, modified SATA power, and I believe this has something to do with the front panel. It it looks like a miniature connector of the front panel, as well as a little bit further down the line, you have the addition of adding a CPU fan should you choose to make your cooling active. Now, back onto the subject of the wireless card, it supports a actually that's not even wireless cards. This is MSATA connector. Yeah, so you could potentially put in a buttload of storage on there. So in terms of storage, you also have two ports which are M.2 2280 standard. So you have one here and one in the back as well, next to the brains of the system, which is the i5 chip. You also have a micro SD slot for any portable operating system requirements. It's there, it's practical, but sadly, the micro SD slot is not accessible via any cutouts on the little side panels. So once you put a card in, you're actually gonna have to take the whole thing apart to take it off. In terms of functionality, I'm gonna be fairly honest with you. The form factor and the expandability of storage, while they do a lot of options, I personally wouldn't use it for more than a Kubernetes farm or something networking related. And by networking related, I mean OpenSense, pfSense, any one of the aftermarket firewall solutions that you guys have. Simply because while it is a 12th gen processor, and I do believe it is an i5, it does run off of a DC power supply, which can be found here, and it's a 60-watt power supply. So roughly the power of an equivalent laptop. Folks, this is what I meant by it can get a little crowded in here. So when you do decide to put in a 2.5-inch drive and means and an MSATA wireless card, the once you close it off and you create this, there is, even though these are flash storage devices, there is going to be a fair bit of heat generation. So if you want to fully maximize this little thing, even though it's fantastic, make sure that you have somewhat of a little bit of active cooling, a fan blowing over it, or maybe put it in a slightly air conditioned environment to avoid overheating and thermal throttling of your devices. To conclude my overview of this little machine, I'm just gonna go over a couple of aspects. I'm gonna go over use case scenario, physical configuration, and whether or not you should get it. So use case scenario, if you're looking for something that's going to be performing relatively light amounts of work, and by light I mean home automation, potentially just a single machine Docker cluster, and in the eventuality maybe just a firewall device, then by all means this is a fantastic choice. It being on a Intel 12th gen platform as well as DDR5, it makes it snappy enough for the requirements. And for a machine of that size, it actually does have an ample variety of configuration for storage. You have a SATA connector, you have an mSATA connector, and you have two NVMe slots, which similar machines in the category usually come with one. However, if you're looking for something to perform a little bit more of an intense job, and by that I mean like database management, maybe network attached storage, even though it is small with the ample storage configuration opportunities that there are available for this machine, I wouldn't. And I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that the machine itself is not super upgradable. So you are stuck with the same chip, the same stick of RAM, and you are rather power limited because it is only a 60-watt brick. The biggest concern that I have with regards to this machine are actually two of them. Number one, it's going to be the single stick of RAM, because in my opinion, that is a rather severe
performance limitation for the machine. It's DDR5 platform, so don't get me wrong. It's not gonna be slow by any means. It's the latest and greatest, so it's pretty fast. It's pretty snappy. But again, we are talking about a single channel RAM, so there are constraints in the computational power of it. And the second limitation that I immediately jumps out to me is thermal limitations. If you were to completely maximize the configuration of this machine, and we're talking about two NVMe slots with an mSATA slot, or sorry, with an mSATA device and a SATA device, you are looking at potentially creating a thermal bottleneck, which means that all these devices that are going to be inside the machine are going to be creating enough heat where at some point this is going to be concerning. And whether or not I would buy it, it all comes down to what the use case scenario of your machine is going to be. If you want a firewall device, fairly capable, if I might add, edge device, then this is a fantastic choice. Despite the fact that it's a single stick of RAM, it is still based on Intel 12th generation chipset with a 12th generation Core i series CPU. It is a fantastic choice for an edge device. If you wanted to turn this into a Docker device, then again, it is a fantastic choice for the type of operation that it's going to be. For example, add a boot device, add two NVMEs. You're going to be kind of reaching a little bit in terms of performance, or you might be reaching maybe a thermal limit, depending on how many Docker containers you're going to put on the device. But it's still a fairly capable machine. Now, if you are going to do something along the lines of making it a heavy operation, such as a database or network attached storage, then I would recommend against it, simply because for the amount of money that you're going to spend for this, you can get 1 or 2 generation older machine and get something that is a lot more capable and a lot more better suited for the role that you want it to do. At the end of the day, you are the only one who can make that decision. I cannot make that for you. The one thing that I would like to do is give you the necessary information so that you can make that decision. If I had to rate it, I'd probably rate it 3.54. I don't know if that's a thing. It's decent, but the lacking features are strong enough for me to say that maybe not 100%, but it's still decent, but not decent enough. Thank you for watching. Please continue engaging with the videos, likes, comments. Everything helps, and if you guys continue watching it, this is the closest that I can get you to contribute without actually throwing money my way, which is fantastic. You get to benefit from the videos, and I get to not ask you to throw money my way. So please continue watching, continue liking, continue subscribing. Throw me a comment or two. I would very much love to hear your ideas on whether or not you have a similar machine. It doesn't have to be the Core i series. If you have the Celeron equivalent of the platform, throw it in the comments. What do you use it for? And engage. It's fun to reach out to the audiences, see what people say, see what people's opinion is, and kind of go from there. Thank you very much for watching once again. I will see you in the next one.